Welcome back to our kitchen, or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. I'm Kezia, and this is our 850 square foot home in the south of England, and we're going to take a look at our dinners this week, which are some of our family favorites. They are all ones that fit our below average food budget while being from scratch, made with simple real food ingredients for the most part. And I think they're all recipes that are pretty forgiving, that are easy to throw together. Easy is relative. If you're not used to from scratch cooking, then they won't feel easy. But I think they're all ones that are kind if you make them a bit wrong or are not used to the processes. And I like that because sometimes I think we can be too specific about how food should be made, and I think that can be intimidating. So these are all pretty forgiving ones that will make something edible even if you don't get it quite right. And we're starting with pizza. We do a family pizza night once a week, and this dough can be made into so many different things. So if there is something I think is so worth conquering, it is a simple yeast dough. People rave about sourdough, but honestly, I think a yeast dough is a bit easier if you're starting out. And I love this one. We love sourdough too, but hey, we love a yeast bread as well. This can be rolls, it can be flatbreads, it can be chocolate or cinnamon rolls, it can be pizza, it can just be a loaf of bread. We love it. We do 6 cups or 720 grams of flour, 500 mils of water, 2 tablespoons of yeast, a good pinch of salt, and then knead it for 10 minutes like this. If you don't need it at all, it will still make pizza dough. If you need it for 2 minutes, or if a child helps you, it doesn't really need it at all, it will still make pizza, and I love that. But here, I am actually doing a proper knead for 10 minutes, which I don't often have the patience for, which is my reason for liking sourdough. Less kneading time, but after kneading it for 10 minutes, we let it stand until we're ready to make pizza. People say until it's doubled in size, but sometimes I'll make it in the morning and throw it in the fridge for the whole day. Sometimes I will make it and start slinging pizzas 20 minutes later. And this is what I mean by forgiving. You will have some kind of pizza at the end of it, regardless. Cost-wise, the flour for this we buy in bulk from Dove's Farm, and it costs just over £1 per kilogram. This recipe using 720 grams for 6 pizzas, which is what it takes to feed our family, means we're using about 80p's worth of flour for all those pizzas. Then we use typically 1 jar of organic passata, which is £1.80, and about 2 to 3 pounds worth of cheese. And that makes all the pizzas, which is a reason we never get pizza takeout, because that is less than the cost of 1 non-organic takeout pizza, and it's just not worth it to us. We love our Saturday night routine. We then add a bit of butter or vegan butter into the passata. That's going to be about 50p to £1 worth of butter as well. And then, of course, there's fruit or veg on the side. We'll typically do cucumber or carrots or chopped apples or pears or something pretty simple, or forage some nettles or some rocket from the garden and put that on too, which then doesn't cost anything. Once the sauce has simmered on the stove, you could of course add in any herbs and things like that. It wants a good pinch of salt as well. Once that has simmered and the dough has risen for as long as time allows, we divide the dough up into 6 pieces. So you've got about 1 cup of flour per pizza base is how we do it. That's the weight of one. I wanted to weigh it out roughly and see, but we just divide it into 6. And then you're ready to go. We heat the oven up really high and then use cast iron skillets, which give a really nice crispy base without a pizza stone. And they just take a homemade pizza to the next level, making it feel like crispy and like it came from a restaurant rather than a floppy crust, which I think makes all the difference. Pizzas are also one of my favorite things for an informal gathering if we're hosting, because I think they feel really fun and special, a homemade pizza, but they're also pretty frugal to feed a crowd. And if it's kids, it feels like a meal that I can make that is from scratch and healthy, but other kids are going to not think is weird. They might think a lentil vegan lasagna is a little odd and outside of their norm, but these pizzas feel pretty standard while being from scratch and frugal. So they are a go-to. They take a little bit more prep time or a little bit more working over the stove, but I think it is a good trade-off. We just stretch out the dough. Jared always likes to roll the dough. I like to stretch it. I don't know why, we both have our different ways of doing it. And then we put it onto the hot skillet so you get that crispy base, and then pop it in the oven for about 10 minutes. You can see it's puffed up and made a yummy, gorgeous looking crust. And it really is amazing, very simple pizza. And our pizzas vary week to week depending on how much time the dough had to rise, or whether we go for more white flour or whole wheat flour, or what we've thrown into the sauce. I'll often put leftovers into the sauce and use things up, but it's always a pizza. And then if we have leftover base dough balls, which these two were, I just throw them in the oven at the end, and those make 2 great bread rolls for someone through the week, or to throw into the freezer. You can also flatten the dough on parchment paper and throw it into the freezer and use it a different time, but we tend to just bake it as bread, and then some will eat it for a breakfast or with eggs for lunch or something like that.
Oh yeah. Crispy base, yummy pizza.
At the end of the night, after pizza was done, I prepped for another dinner this week, which is going to be beans. This is one of the questions I get asked the most often, is how do you cook your beans? And it is the most simple thing. So I'm starting by soaking a kilogram of dry pinto beans. I always make lots if I'm making any kind of bean, because they take a lot of soaking. This is the next morning. They've got a lot bigger. They've soaked up a lot of water. And I have drained that water, and now I am replacing it with fresh water, and I'm going to set them simmering through the day. I just roughly cut a couple of onions and put them in. Yes, I cut on my work surface. This is a bad habit. Someone leaves a comment every time. When we moved into this house, we were planning on replacing the countertops, and I developed a bad habit of cutting on the countertops, and then it didn't mark them. So I've kept going. I'm sure I shouldn't do it. But those beans are going to go on a low heat with just an onion and salt and simmer for at least 2 hours, but on a low heat for more if we happen to be in the house all day. And they will be so delicious just like that with nothing else.
I'm making some focaccia.
What was focaccia?
I am prepping here exactly the same dough as last night for tonight's dinner, but this time we're going to turn it into I use this word lightly, loosely, focaccia. All I mean by that is the very rough method we're going to use to bake it, and this time we're going to do it as a no-knead loaf. So I'm doing the same 720, 6 cups of flour, 720 grams, 500 mils, and you can see my daughter has stepped in to help me, which I love being able to invite them in to do, and not getting too technical or worrying too much about it. We are going to turn this into, okay, we're doing a little kneading, but just enough to pull it all together. Then it's going to go back in the bowl. I think this is an 8-second clip, sped up 3 times. So that is 24 seconds of kneading this bread dough got. So really not very much. We're going to call it no knead. And then it is just going to sit and rise for about an hour. I am not Italian, and I say focaccia only because that is what we call it. It is a far cry from a real focaccia, but I mean that we add butter to the dish, then the no-knead dough, more butter on top, and then kind of press it down with our fingers before baking. This one ended up too thick. I should have put it in a bigger pan, but that's what I love about bread dough. And we have all these very precise recipes, but actually if it's too thick, or too thin, or you don't leave it long enough, you're always going to end up with something that works. This was delicious. We ended up eating some of it as is. We're going to make a frittata to go with it, and then slicing some of it through the middle and using it for sandwiches, for lunches later on in the week. But it just doesn't matter about getting it exactly right. And I think that makes cooking from scratch and doing it on a budget less intimidating. So we're just doing the finger prods in the top, adding a bit of salt, and then popping it straight into an oven. Same bread dough as the pizza, slightly different way of working with it, and we get a different, fun, happy from scratch product. To go with the bread, we're going to make a frittata. This is one of my favorites for just throwing in some veggies, having a good, easy, vegetarian, protein-rich meal. These eggs are from the shops because our ducks are not laying eggs. So we've got about 2 pounds 80's worth of free range eggs here. They are not organic, but they're free range. And we use 10, so 2 pounds 80. And then I'm adding in some frozen peas, about 1 pound's worth of frozen peas, and some spinach from the veg box. So it's hard to say exactly what each thing costs in the veg box, but I think it's about 2 pounds per portion of veg. I didn't use all of the spinach, but I did add some cheese, which means adding it all up, the 2 pounds 80 for the eggs, 2 pounds for the veggies, about maybe 1 pound 50 for the bread because it has a lot of butter in it. We get to about a 7 or 8 pound meal, except that the bread lasted for more than a meal. So it's kind of rough, but it fits our dinner budget goal of £10 for a family dinner. A frittata is also one I love to make ahead for breakfast, but I'm the only one who likes it for breakfast or on the go food. Everyone else only likes it hot for a lunch or dinner. But I love it loaded up with cottage cheese and sriracha. Here, though, we are just loading up on this focaccia style bread, we'll call it, and frittata slices, and that is just a really simple early kid dinner, and then we will have it later on. We're recording this as it is beginning to get light at dinner time. Most of this video is in the dark because it's still winter, but it is beginning to change and feel springy. And we're going in for the next night's dinner, which is going to be some taco style wraps. So we've got all those pinto beans. They've cooked for a couple of hours. I've added a bit of ketchup and a bit of cumin. Those are not necessary, just with the onion and salt. It is absolutely delicious. You've just got to keep enough water in so that they keep cooking down and get nice and creamy. And then we're going to make some really simple wraps. So this is a different recipe from the bread dough. These do not use yeast, but we do about 3 cups of flour, a few teaspoons of baking powder, and some salt. Mix in just enough water to bring it together as a dough. I will link the recipe below, and then divide it up. This recipe needs no kneading at all. It makes about 16 wraps. Obviously, completely depends what size you're going to make them. And these are probably better if you roll them out and then leave them to rest, and then roll them flat and leave them to rest and then cook them. But honestly, they are great made just rolled out and into the pan. Everyone loves these, whatever meal we make them for. They go down really, really well. Tacos are another meal we love for hosting. Throw a bunch of different things on the table. Work with what you've got. We also chop these up. You can make chips for them if you cook them and then chop them up, oil them and cook them in the oven, or we'll chop them into strips to put on top of a soup. And we just cook them in a hot, dry, not oiled skillet. They take a minute maybe for each one, maybe less, depending on if the skillet is really hot. We just throw it in. You can see here they start to bubble up. Then we flip them and then just do a couple of seconds on the other side and pull them out. These ones are made with 50-50 white and whole wheat flour. They're one recipe where white flour does give a really good, maybe slightly preferable product, but we try and get fiber in wherever we can. And they really, really work 100% whole wheat or a 50-50. I find a 50-50 is the sweet spot for us in terms of getting the fiber and using the cheaper whole wheat flour, but also getting a really nice pliable wrap. We keep our taco nights vegetarian and very simple, but these are one of our favorite meals. Everybody really is so happy when this is what's on the meal plan. We make a massive cabbage slaw, and this cabbage is not organic. This is one where the difference between organic and non-organic is huge. A non-organic cabbage is about 85p. An organic cabbage was nearly £4. So we've gone non-organic here, and then we're throwing in a bit of Greek yogurt and mayonnaise, vinegar and salt. And this slaw will last for 2 meals, but it is a couple of pounds for the big bowl done non-organic. It's definitely better if you can get the cabbage really fine, and if you can give it some time to stand and rest and let it soften up, it does become extra yummy. I think it's so much better the second day because I never make it in advance, but if you can, it is extra good. And then we just load it up. We've got those creamy pinto beans, which I think it was about £4 for the entire vat of pinto beans, which lasted a good few meals. Great protein, really delicious. There is just something amazing about creamy, salty, seasoned pinto beans that we all love, and then mixed with the creamy and the crunch and the tang of the slaw wrapped up in a wrap. So good. These actually didn't even have cheese on top. I think my husband added cheese to his ones later. I gave them a dousing of sriracha. We all have our own little ways, but that is the base meal that we love so much. It's probably one of our most frugal but happy meals that we have regularly on rotation. We don't do a from scratch meal every night, as in we don't cook one every night. We'll always make enough for at least 2 meals. So 4 planned dinners like this will see us through the week, and then leftovers will either be the next night or they'll be lunch, or lunches will be simple things like breakfast sandwiches or scrambled eggs or quesadillas made out of leftover wraps with some slaw. So we're not making 7 lunches and 7 dinners, but everything will do 2 meals. So the last from scratch meal we're doing this week is a broccoli mac and cheese. I said on a recent video that in England, if you're going to have macaroni cheese, then you're going to make it from scratch because we don't have it in a box. And someone commented and said, wait, you don't buy it in a box, or you can't buy it in a box in England? And I have never found it in a box in England. We used to live in the States where that is the normal way to make mac and cheese, is from a box. But here you are going to make it from scratch if you want it. And that is what we're doing today. It's actually really a pretty simple thing to do. So we have cooked here 1 kilogram of organic whole wheat pasta, which is just under £4, and an organic broccoli, which is again from the veg box. So we're looking at £2 to £3 for the organic Riverford broccoli. This is one that can all be made vegan. I'm using a mix of both vegan and not vegan, but we've got about half a cup of vegan butter going in there. I'm going to melt that down and then add about 1 cup of flour. I use whole wheat. It doesn't give you that same white sauce, but you can use either. And we're going to mix those together to form a roux. That's this kind of paste. It allows the butter and the flour to cook together, and then we're going to slowly whisk in milk. I got this milk on clearance, so it was a bit cheaper, but we're going to use 1 litre of milk, which is about £1.50's worth of milk bought organically. This was my birthday week and I got given a whisk, which I've not had in the kitchen just because I've wanted to wait to find one secondhand, and you can make this with a fork. You don't need a whisk, but oh wow, it was easier with a really high quality, heavy duty whisk that they found secondhand, my daughter actually, and got me for my birthday. So we're going to whisk in all that milk and then wait till it simmers and all the flour is cooked. And I just do it to taste, really, until it doesn't taste like raw flour anymore. And then add a good pinch of salt. That's a good pinch of salt going in there. And then as much cheese as you want. Obviously, the more cheese you use, the more expensive it gets and the more cheesy it tastes. You have to find the balance that works for you. I use about a cup of grated cheese, which is maybe £2 to £3 worth of cheese. This is not organic cheese. And then you just want to stir it over a low heat, let the cheese melt. Then we're going to pour all of the pasta back in. I probably wasn't as efficient with dishes here as I could have been, but I wanted to make the sauce in my big pan and I only have one. So we're getting that all cooked and creamy and delicious. And then we're going to throw it all back in together. What I tend to do is serve it the first time from the pan and then put it all into a dish and bake it for the second time that we eat it. It stops the pasta from all completely breaking down and makes it feel like a more intentional dish the second time around. But that much cheese sauce did a kilogram of pasta and a big head of broccoli with the stalk and everything cut in and steamed as well. Cost-wise, with just under £4 for the organic pasta, £2 to £3 for the broccoli, £1.50 for the milk, a bit of butter, some cheese, and then little bits of flour in the mix. This ends up at about a £7 meal because it did 2 servings for our family of 5. Our average meal cost needs to be about £6 on our budget, but I tend to weight it towards dinners, and our goal is a £10 family dinner. And that is our dinners done for the week. I hope you enjoyed. You can, of course, hit subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in another one sometime soon.